Welcome to another episode of Find Your Free, the podcast. I am your hostess, Rachel Voss, and it is again early on a Monday morning, the first official Monday of spring, and I am so excited that spring is here. It's interesting. So I guess we're just going to jump right into this episode, right? So I am like a super light sleeper. I always have been. I just like any noise wakes me up. I don't really experience deep sleep. I wake up a lot through the night. And so with that, and I've been like that since a kid. But with that comes insomnia, right? So like if something, say like I do have a deep sleep in the night and then something wakes me up, a noise from outside, I don't know, David makes a move, the kid wakes me up, just something, a bad dream wakes me up, just something, right? Sometimes I can fall right back asleep, but when I'm up, most times when I'm waking up, I'm up. And so then there comes the insomnia. And so I had a night like that last night where I just like, no matter how hard I tried, like I couldn't get myself to fall asleep. Like I'd get to a space where I'd feel myself start to drift. I feel myself start to get kind of heavy with the sleep. And then just something would come along and just kind of perk me back up and try to do all the things. Don't look at your phone. Don't do this, don't do that. Just anything that would kind of stimulate me and keep me up. But eventually I gave in to just looking at my phone and, just trying to do some stuff. And I finally found sleep, but it was just about 2 hours ago. And I have to record this podcast by a certain time. So there was no sleeping in and doing it later. So I just had to make myself get up and roll right out of the bed and into the chair and onto the mic, right? But because it is spring and it's sunny outside and maybe a little chilly in temperature, but it's sunny outside, the weather just looks really welcoming. And even though I'm a little bit sleepy pants, to be greeted by the day like this is always good for me spiritually and energetically. So I'm super grateful for spring. And yeah, just super grateful for spring making its entrance over the weekend. It was a little bit of an eventful weekend family-wise, just running around, stuff to do. The kid had a couple of obligations, but it was nice to go out and to experience some of the warmer weather, chilly in the morning, warmer in the afternoons, but just to see the sun and just feel the shift. You can feel the shift energetically. Not that I despise winter or anything like that. There obviously is a reason for every season, as they say. And winter is where we root down. Winter is where we restore, right? Winter is where we just kind of hunker down and take time for rest, for grounding. And then spring is where we have renewal, right? Spring is where we experience rebirth. And then spring gives way into the glory of summer. Summer shifts into the season again of letting go, which is fall. And then we start the cycle all over again with winter. So there is a reason for every season. And again, I'm not a fan of winter. I prefer warm over cold. Although I have always considered myself a four seasons kind of girl. I've always preferred warm over cold, but I can appreciate a snowy winter day. I can appreciate being cozy. Though I will say, as I'm getting older, which is going to be a nice segue into what I have queued up to talk about today. But as I'm getting older, I'm definitely liking warm much more than I'm liking the cold. And, again, when I was younger and for me, it was like, especially growing up in New Jersey, it was like, winter represents Christmas and, just all of that, just the warm and fuzzy time. So when you have that experience kind of growing up, or at least when I did, as I became an adult, it was like, yeah, I got to have my four seasons because I got to have the season that gives me that, the joy, the magic, waiting for Santa to come, in the snow and, white Christmas and all of that, right? And then you get older and you're like, but I have to shovel that snow. I have to learn how to manage the heat, you know what I mean? So that the electric bill doesn't get out of control, right? Like the reality of winter, right? It settles in as you get older and have to be responsible for what comes with winter. And then you become the parent who has to buy the gifts for the kids. So it's not the magic of Christmas anymore the way it was, when you were a kid. So all of that happens. And then you become an adult and you're like, yeah, you know what? I think I might be over winter and ready for like full-time warmer weather. And I see myself kind of trending more and more towards that, towards just like, not that I need hot all the time, but like give me a good breezy sunny 70 day and I am in my glory. So it's interesting, what you notice, or just how things shift as you get older, again, which is the segue for what I want to talk about today. So while I was up with my insomnia, I was kind of like, all right, well, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And, a couple of episodes ago, I talked about my mom. I dedicated an episode to my mom. And naturally, after that, I was like, all right, well, I got to do one for my dad, right? But the organic feeling of that hasn't hit me yet. Like when it was time to do, or when I did that episode about my mom, it just felt really organic. We had this conversation, I had some things weighing on my heart. I'm just working through my own things as I become older and, all of that. And, just that shift. And, and working through like just the patterns that you developed as a child from your mom, and then seeing those patterns in yourself and what can you change, what can stay, all that type of stuff. So I was in that kind of space when the idea of doing an episode for and about my mom came organically to me. And even though the idea is there to do one for my dad, and I know that there is an episode that will be about him, I just haven't felt that organic feeling. And I would never want an episode, especially one about my parents, to be forced. I want it to truly, truly, truly come from the heart, feel natural, feel right. And so when it is time for that, that will happen. So in my insomnia, I'm like, all right, it's not time for Daddy's episode yet. So what will I talk about? And then I thought about something that happened over this beautiful, glorious spring weekend, and said, oh yeah, you know what? We'll talk about that and we'll see where it goes. So I don't really have a lot of context around the thought. It was just something that seemed like a place where I could start at least with having a conversation and going from there. And before I jump into that, I had this in my mind as soon as I sat down, and I was like, let me make sure I say this before, I move on into the rest of the episode. But last week, my podcast comes out on Tuesdays. I released a podcast on Tuesday morning. And Tuesday, in the evening throughout the day, we had the tragic events that happened in Atlanta. And so I just want to send my love to the Asian community, to the Asian American community. Hearts are with you. And just standing with you in solidarity is just really tragic. Just to see, things that are just part of our everyday, normal lives just be so violated, once we started seeing like the shootings in the schools, just shootings period, right? But, once we started really seeing that shift of shootings in schools, because like when I was growing up, that was never a concern. And then, here I have a kid, and when he was in second grade, we had to talk to him because that was when Sandy Hook happened. And we had to talk to him about, lockdowns, and he was doing like drills at his school and stuff like that. And I remember one day they had to do like a drill, and he came home with a little bit of anxiety about it. Like, Mom, it was just like freaky, and I imagine it must be. You just think I'm going to school to learn and to play with my friends and to, do activities or whatever. Like, you don't think you have to go and practice a drill to save your life. So it's just, and I remember there was a shooting in a yoga studio in Florida. I think it was in 2019, certainly before the pandemic hit. But, that one definitely was like, ugh, that really hit me close to home. And certainly the school, having a kid and just being human, right? But being a yoga teacher was like, a yoga studio space? Like, really? So you think of that, you think of like churches, you think of just spaces that are really, really sacred, and and just in spaces where people go to for healing or for nurturing or for themselves or, for whatever it is. And, something like this happens. And so, yeah, so my heart is just with the families, of the victims, the families of those who survived the incident, and just, yeah, sending all the prayers, all the love, and just all the peace and all the ease. So yeah, just wanted to make sure I took a moment for that. Just taking a deep breath to now transition into what I thought about for today. So, well, interestingly enough, on Friday, I went for a massage, right? And that's what made me think about that. Is like, that's what I went for on Friday, just again, everyday thing. Oh, another breath. And so Friday, I went for some body work. I am definitely the healer that prescribes, but that does not take her own medicine. And I will admit guilt to that. And I know a lot of other healers who are in my shoes. Like, we give, we serve, we teach, we show up. And then when it comes time for ourselves, we can be like the last on the totem pole, right? It's totally the blessing and the curse of being a healer. So I often tell myself, like, Rachel, you're going to do more body work for yourself. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it just doesn't happen. It's like, it becomes something that I'm like, all right, I'll get to it when I get to it. And so for the past couple of months, at least for the past couple of weeks, I've had this like stiffness in my neck, like this real stiffness in my neck, in the right side of my neck. And I keep meaning to look up what does that mean energetically. But it's in the right side of my neck, goes just in like the top, like my right the side of my right trapezoid, like just that whole area, a little bit into the top of like the right shoulder blade, but definitely in the neck. So much so that when I would turn to look left, it would feel so tight. Like it was just like it wouldn't give. And, again, I'm a light sleeper. I move around a lot. It's hard for me to get comfortable sometimes. And so, I toss and turn. But what's really interesting, I think I've said this a couple of episodes ago, is like, it's the result of me not being like a good sleeper. But like, the minute Dave and I like have a chance, we've had our day, we've done our work, we do whatever, and then we sit down on the couch and, to watch a movie or, just do whatever. 9 times out of 10, I'm passing out on the couch at like 9. And he's just like, dude, like, I don't know why we sit down to watch movies. Like, you never like see the movie all the way through. And then he's like, I don't understand, like, how you fall asleep so hard on the couch, but then like the minute you get in the bed, it's like you're up. And again, what happens is, I fall asleep hard on the couch, and it's not that I need the TV to fall asleep. It's actually the opposite. Like, I cannot, like, we don't have a TV in our bedroom. And so I cannot, like, I don't like noise. Like, I really think that, and I have to ask my mom this, but I definitely, knowing my mom, would believe at least, that my mom was definitely the mom when I was a baby that like wouldn't let people vacuum around me, wouldn't let anybody do like any noise around me when I was asleep, because she wanted me to stay asleep or whatever. She was being super protective. When I had my son, that was some of the advice that was given to me, is like, when they fall asleep, like, do all of the things, like, don't make it super quiet. Otherwise, you're always going to have that environment for them to fall asleep. And you really want your kid to just be able to just fall asleep, like whatever's going on. And so, not that I would like turn on the vacuum every time he went to sleep, but I would be mindful. Like, sometimes I would absolutely be quiet, but then sometimes I'm like, well, no, I'm going to go on with life. But when I look at how I sleep, I'm like, oh yeah, no, my mother must have definitely had it like absolutely quiet, everybody walking on pins and needles, because again, any little noise like wakes me up and I cannot go back to sleep. So it's not like I need the TV to fall asleep. It's just that, like, again, it's the end of the day. I haven't slept well the night before. I'm doing umpteen different things throughout the day. I teach 2 evening classes. So definitely after I teach the 2 nighttime classes, when I sit down, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm whooped. And so he's just like, dude, I don't know how like you fall asleep and then you get in the bed and you're awake. But what happens is I fall asleep on the couch, and I fall into like a deep sleep, on the couch. And then the break is when I get up to get into bed. And that small shift of getting up to get in the bed, the few minutes that it takes to do that, to just kind of, change your pajamas, like, I wake myself back up, and then I try to pop right back into the bed and go right back to sleep. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So it's just really interesting, like, how that works. So why was I talking about the couch and sleep? and insomnia. Again, this is sometimes why it might be good to have a co-host or somebody here just to keep me in check. Like, yeah, Rachel, you started there, now you went there, so let's bring it back there. So, well, it'll just have to come back to me. So I'll just keep going with what I was talking about. But anyway, yeah, sleeping. That's what it was. So sleeping. So sometimes when I fall asleep on the couch, right, I think I fall asleep with like my neck turned at a funny angle. I think sometimes like when I sleep on my back, I let my head drop off to the side. So I kind of thought it was that. And just with this neck stiffness and pain that I was feeling. And no matter how hard I would try to massage it, I try to get David in there, I try to do the tennis ball thing. Like I couldn't find first the trigger point, kind of like, where is this stiffness rooted? I couldn't find that no matter how much I tried to get in there, and I couldn't find any relief. Like there just wouldn't be any relief. So finally I'm like, all right, I got to get some body work done because I can't keep teaching and trying to show up. And it's just like, it's uncomfortable for me, right? And just my body in general. It's like I teach yoga pretty much every day except for Sundays. And, you know, it's a good way to keep my body active and in shape, but it's also, I've been teaching for 8 years now. And so, you know, the repetition on your body, that can contribute to wear and tear. And so that's why it's important to do the body work and to do the things that help you take care of yourself, right? It's like a car, you know what I mean? Like you got to get oil changes and get your maintenance and all that type of stuff, right? So I finally decided, all right, let me go get some body work. And shout out to my girl, Akua. I don't know if Akua listens to the pod, but if you do, shout out to you. Akua is a yoga student turned sister friend, and she took the very first class that I ever taught in a gym. I talked about that last week when I used to teach at LA Fitness. When I was in yoga teacher training, one of my classmates was teaching in a gym at a time. She was already a yoga teacher and was like taking the 200 as like it's kind of like continuing ed or a refresher. And she was already teaching in a gym, and I hadn't taught at all. Like I'm just in the teacher training program, you know, doing whatever our mock teaching to each other. And so, you know, when you come up in the studio space, you have the sanctuary and the safety of the studio space. So she came in, this classmate, and she's like, yeah, I teach in the gym. And it's like, it's awful. You get any kind of person in there. It's not like, you know, people who come in there, you know, treating it like a studio space. And somebody threw a block at me once. And I'm like, somebody threw a block at you? Like, oh my God, like why? And in retrospect, I haven't been in connection with this teacher in a long time, but I want to be like, now that I'm teaching, I want to be like, well, what did you do that they get to throw a block at you? Like I tease my students sometimes that like I took them through a challenging enough practice that they might want to throw a block at me. So maybe she did that. But, you know, at first I'm like, oh God, that's an awful student. But then I'm like, what'd you do? Like, you know, it's a combination between the student, because no student should ever throw a block, but it's kind of like, well, did you do something? But anyway, so she was just, you know, she would tell us these stories about like the gym. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm never going to teach in a gym, like ever. And that was 2 years before I quit my corporate job. And then when I quit the corporate job, like, and it was like, okay, shit, what am I going to do now to make money? You know, opportunities, because I was following my heart and following my path, opportunities did start coming to me. And one was an opportunity to teach at LA Fitness. And so I started teaching there in 2015. And the first day I went in, it was a Saturday too. And Saturday is the day at the gym. And I was teaching an 11 o'clock class. And I remember like I was nervous the whole morning, like, oh my God, you know, like they're going to run me out of there. Like somebody's going to throw a block, like what the fuck? But, you know, I got to do it. I signed up. I need the income. I probably shouldn't shit on LA Fitness, but this is a homegrown, my podcast. I don't know if LA Fitness is going to listen to this, but if you do, you should hear it. It's not a way to make a lot of money in retrospect, at least starting out. Like, I don't personally know anybody that's had it. You would be called a group fitness instructor, you know, at the LA Fitness, at these types of gyms, a group fitness instructor. So I don't know if anyone has had long-term experience being a group fitness instructor at the gym and has seen, you know, financial abundance with that. But like, it's not. It's like what they pay the yoga teachers versus the amount of people who can come to a class versus the amount that each of those people pay for membership and what it translates to the person as the instructor. It's literally like less than pennies on the dollar. Like it's, but anyway, at the time I needed income. So fix that, LA Fitness, because, we're worth it. Anyway. So, but I needed the income at the time, and it was income. And I was like, all right, I need this opportunity. But I will say, I'm all over the place this Monday morning. I will say, the value add is that it does give you a lot of exposure. So I would never say don't teach at the gym for any person who's new to yoga teaching, or maybe anybody else who's doing group fitness instruction. So if you're like Zumba, whatever your thing is, this is not to say don't teach at the gym. This is to say know your worth. Don't let them lowball you, and maximize that opportunity, because the value add is that you do get 40, 50 people. I'd have like regularly coming in. I would teach on Mondays and Saturdays, and I would have like 30, 40. Actually, sometimes on Mondays I'd have more than Saturday, but I'd have like 30, 40 people on a Monday, maybe sometimes 20, 30. And then, yeah, definitely anywhere between 25 and 50 on a Saturday. So that is exposure. And I started collecting email addresses, people who wanted to stay in touch with me. And that gym experience, I ended up teaching there for just over 2 years. That gym experience is the foundation of my database of my community, of my newsletter community, folks I can email. So yeah, my email list. And so it's great exposure in that way. So again, it's not to say don't do it. There is, you get perks to use the gym, you get a guest pass. Like there are perks that come with it. So I say, know your value, make sure you use the benefit of the value add of having that exposure. Like don't have all that exposure and don't get contact information and follow-ups and clients. And because I had clients come out of that, class opportunities, so many things come out of that. So massage the opportunity, but the gyms need to do better by the group fitness instructors. So I say all that to say, I was freaked out on my first day in the gym. I really wanted to do a good job. Went in there, ended up teaching a kick-ass flow, was so proud of myself. And afterwards, the student came up to me and she said to me, oh my God, I love that class. You are my yoga instructor and I will be coming to your classes like from here on out. And sure enough, she did. And that was Akua. And she came consistently. She has come to all of my retreats. She has come to just all of my things, just true supporter. As we got to know each other, turns out like we lived in the same condo community. So, you know what I mean? And so just, yeah. So shout out to you, Akua. Just beautiful friend. Now here we are again. Akua. I was going to say, why did I bring up Akua? Oh my goodness. Monday morning with 2 hours of sleep. Hello. But anyway, so Akua recommended this body worker to me. Shout out to you, Tarika. Manifestation in DC. And manifestation is 2 words. And so Akua recommended Tarika to me. God, it's probably the same thing a couple of months ago. She's like, oh my God, like actually at some point last year, we had a social distance visit and she was telling me, she's like, oh my God, I went for a massage. I got the detox. She prepared a juice for me afterwards. Like it was the most, like just the most, just soothing experience. I was floating when I came back home. I came home, took the longest nap, all of this. And I'm like, oh my God, send me the information. So Akua sent me the information. And from time to time, Akua would check in like, did you go see her? Have you gone to see her? And I'm like, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to make the time. And then 3 weeks ago or so, I'm sitting there and my neck was just like, I could not turn it to the left. It was just so hard. And when I teach online and I have to demonstrate everything I do. And some postures, you look to the left, you look to the right, some things I'm trying to look at the camera and the students don't know, but it's painful for me. It's like, oh my God, this really bothers me. So I finally was like, I got to do this. So finally make the appointment with Tarika. And this is not what this episode is about, but then again, it is. So let me talk through it and let myself land. So finally make the appointment and I go and I have that appointment last Friday. So I go in, I'm meeting Tarika for the first time and she's like, all right, what do you want to work on? So I'm like, yeah, my neck is just totally stiff. Don't know what's going on. Got some old injuries with my back. A lot of stuff going on in there, feeling this, feeling that. My wrists feel a little achy. I do a lot of stuff. Tell her I'm a yoga instructor. And she's like, oh yeah. She was like, I have a couple of you yoga instructors as clients and it's like the flexibility is there, sort of the openness in the body is there. But at the same time, tightness, stiffness. She's like, I feel it all when it comes to yoga instructors. So, so I'm just like, I'd sign up for deep tissue. And while I'm getting the treatment, she's like, do you mind if I just try, just a couple of other modalities with you? Because you've got a lot of tightness like going on in your back, and you could feel it. It was just like her trying to get in there. And she's like, this is something like, it's going to need consistency. And I know that. She's like, this is something that's going to need consistency. And so I want to try a few different things so that, if when you come back in the future, I kind of know what to use for you. And I love that, because when I have a private client for the first time as a yoga student, I do the same thing. I ask them what their needs are, unless it's like just straight up basic, you know what I mean? Like, I just need absolute basic. If it's somebody that's like, oh, I'm looking for my back, I'm looking for, just some healing, you know what I mean? Just kind of mental, just whatever it is, then I can do a range of things, like a little bit of restorative, a little bit of movement. So I like to do that same approach of trying a few different styles in one session, so the client can see like, oh, there's a range of things. It's not just sitting here stretching, and that they can see that they can tailor, pull bits and pieces from different practices or different styles to make a session, to tailor a session for them. So I loved that she was taking that approach with me. So one of the modalities she tried was cupping, and I've never tried cupping therapy before. I've wanted to try it, but I never had an opportunity. And so I was like, oh my God, yes, absolutely. And as soon as she put the first one on, like, oh, the sensation, it's definitely one of those kind of like, if you had acupuncture, kind of, I always say like it hurts so good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not painful. Like, oh, get me out of here. Well, sometimes a massage can be painful when they're really working something out, but it's like it's like a good pain. So the cupping kind of felt like that, like it was doing something, and it created like this sensation that was like, that made me catch my breath for a second, but I could also feel this super deep relief, like especially in this one space, like in the center of where I was experiencing the tightness. And she explained to me, she said, what the cupping does is like, it helps to break up stagnant blood. Like sometimes blood gets stagnant, under the muscles and all of that. And so that can help, that can contribute to like the stiffness and the tightness. So when you get the blood moving, like that helps to open things up. That made sense to me as well. Not to sort of gross out my male listeners. Not that it should gross you out, but when a woman gets her cycle, we get cramps, and cramps are the same way. It's when the blood is not constricted, or when the blood is not flowing, the muscles are constricted, and the blood doesn't flow. And that's what causes like the cramps, when the blood isn't able to flow. And so it's that same idea that the muscles are tight and not allowing the blood to really kind of get through there. So the cupping helps to kind of break that up, and that spoke to kind of, because that's what I felt. I felt like I said, like this release, especially in this one spot. So anyway, so I get the treatment. It's amazing. I tell Tarika I'll be back. And, she tells me, she's like, oh yeah, you might see a little bruising on your back from the cupping. I've known that from the pictures. And I'm like, all right, great. So that night, when I was changing, David saw my back, and he's like, geez, what happened, man? And I'm like, oh, I got the cupping. And I wanted to take a picture of it. So we didn't catch it that night. We caught it Saturday morning, right? And so here's what led into the idea of the podcast. And I was going to talk about this one specific thing, and I am. But just a few moments ago, I said all of this is to lead into this one specific point. But I realized what I plan to title this podcast actually is the umbrella for everything I'm talking about. Making sure you take time with your body work, making sure you just take care of yourself, give yourself maintenance, and what I'm about to share right now. So on Saturday mornings, I teach my active yoga class. So my most active class of the week. Pause for the cause. I'm going to take a sip of my lemon water. Hot lemon water in the morning. Great way to cleanse the body. Okay. I probably should have done that on the mic. But anyway, so I have my active class on Saturday mornings, and I usually get up 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours sometimes beforehand, just to have a chance to, get up, shower, have a little something to eat, my lemon water, to move through the practice, to think about what I want to teach, all that. So I'm not, because with the Saturday, it could be very easy for me to just sort of lay in the bed right until it's time to teach, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just like, no, let me get up and, do the things. So I'm taking a shower. And when I get out the shower, I'm like, ooh, I want David to take a picture of my back. I wanted to see it because I wasn't able to really see my back. And B, I was going to share the picture of the cupping as a way to just talk a little bit about the experience of it on my socials and to promote Tarika, to promote the bodywork business. So I come out the shower. I'm feeling myself a little bit, right? So I'm oiling myself up, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have baby take my picture, and I'm not. And so again, this is all ties into what this episode is about, or what I plan to title this episode. I am body conscious, and we're gonna get into that. I am body conscious, not overly so. David would probably disagree. David would probably say, yes, you are. I say not overly so because for me, I'm like, okay, I have the things I'm conscious about, but I also don't have any intention outside of what I can do with exercising and eating, that type of stuff. But like, as far as like surgery, like I don't plan to do anything, right? So I'm not conscious to a point where I'm like, I've got to do something about it, right? And I don't knock surgery. So if anybody interpreted it that way, please do not. I don't knock it. It's just not a choice I make for myself, or I personally intend to make for myself. Anything can happen. In 10 years, I might be like, oh my God, this neck, I got to get it tightened up. But right now, I'm kind of like, no, like I have what I have, right? I'll just fuss about it. So that's why I say I'm not overly conscious, but I'm conscious. So, but I was having a moment where I was not in that space of consciousness. I was in a space of like, I'm feeling myself. I was feeling sexy. I was feeling like, you know what? I'm about to walk out this bathroom butt naked. And sometimes I do, but sometimes I'll have my little towel or my robe or whatever, because I'll be like, oh, I don't want, not that I don't want David to see me. Obviously he's seen me, but in the space of being conscious, I am conscious of how my body has shifted from the 20-year-old body to, the 30-year-old body to now the 43-year-old body. So I'm a little conscious of that. So I tend to sometimes cover up when I'm in that conscious space, and I shouldn't do that, but I do. So this morning I was opposite, and I was like, I'm gonna walk out and just be in my glory. And I didn't. I came out. He's like, okay. So I'm like, babe, I came out pranced out a little bit, and I was just feeling like all elegant and all of this. So I'm like, babe, can you take a picture of my back? I want to post a picture, of my back and talk about the cupping and, all of that. So I sit down, on the bed for him to take the picture, because he's like half awake, he's just waking up or whatever. So he's not ready to like jump out the bed and pose, help me pose. So I try to make it easy for him. I come to sit on the edge of the bed. So he kind of scoots back and, he takes a picture. So he takes a few. And I'm like, and for me, in my head, I'm like trying these different angles that I think I see when I see a picture of, say, somebody's back on Instagram, somebody's modeling something, or it's a hair. You'll see that they do something with their shoulders or whatever. So I'm like trying the moves of what I think makes a nice picture. David's like, Rachel, just sit with your back straight. You look nuts. And I'm like, okay. So, because I'm a little body conscious, and I'm also a little, I don't know, I'm not super comfortable in front of the camera. And so I've talked about my rites of passage work in a few episodes, and that's some of the joy that I really have to come into as far as just myself and my existence is just really just being like in celebration of me, like I get a little awkward. I feel awkward on the camera, like, I don't know how to pose. I don't know how to do this. Some of that I attribute to I say the dark side of Scorpio, not in a negative way, but like Scorpios can tend to be very just like, background, like don't, you know what I mean? Like we maybe spotlight with emotions, but like, it's also like, no, just, I like to be away. You know what I mean? Like, don't put me in front of stuff. So it's some of that, you know what I mean? It's like, it's some of that plays into that. So I'm like, I don't get, I'm not very comfortable in front of the camera and all that stuff. So, so I'll just have these moments where I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So David's like, just sit with your back straight. So he takes a couple of pictures. He's like, all right, here you go. And when he shows me them, I'm like, that's my back? And it wasn't the cupping. It was, I've gained weight. I was trying to find another way to say that, but I've gained weight. Certainly, like many of us, I put on a few pounds with quarantine, but I haven't, it's weird. I've seen it. again, because like I said, I'm body conscious. I've seen the shift overall in my body, right? From, again, 20 to 40, right? I've seen that shift overall. But I haven't, and I don't know if it's because like I'm looking at myself, I don't know what it is. Like I see things and I'm like, oh, okay, that wasn't there before, but I haven't felt like I've gained this weight overall. Like I haven't felt like I've gotten like my quarantine 15. Like I haven't felt like that, right? And I think because in my head, I'm like, well, I'm doing this yoga every day and I have my practice and I'm moving and, da 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 da. But that picture showed me I've gained a little more weight than I realized. Now, it could have been the angle, could have been a little bit of the close-up. I wasn't sitting with my back all the way straight, right? So, but I just was like, oh my God, that's me? Like, oh. And I looked at myself in horror, to be honest. I looked at myself in horror like, this is not good, And then I started asking David, oh my God, what do you think? David's like, oh no, you are not going to loop me into like asking me what I think. He's like, I'll tell you what I think, but you're not going to loop me into like, am I fat? Like, you're so not looping me into that discussion. Right. So he's like, cause he's like, that's just a trick question. So he's like, this is what I think. And it is, he's always said this to me. This man and I have been in each other's lives 10 years at this point now. And he has always said this to me. I was definitely a couple pounds lighter 10 years ago than I am now. And he said it to me then, and he says it to me now, because then, ironically, 10 years ago, I felt like I wasn't thick enough, to be honest. Like I felt like, oh, I'm too thin, right? Because it's all about like the fat ass and the this and that, and and I'm more, like, I don't know if you told me an athletic build, but like I have kind of like that proportioned build, right? And so when the big ass is all over the place and I'm like, well, I have more of a little heart-shaped thing going on, there was consciousness about that. And now 10 years later, it's like, oh no, now I want to go back to the 30-year-old body, right? So Dave has always said to me, I just want you to love yourself, whatever that looks like, whether it's 10 pounds lighter, whether it's 10 pounds more, like, I don't care. I just want you to love and feel good about yourself. When you do that, that's what I want. That's all I care about. And he told me that before. But I just got in my head like, oh my God, I cannot look like this. And, and he's like, well, Ray, I will say this. You do love your snacks. And I do. I'm not a big meal eater, but I'm definitely a snacker. And, our 20s trick us, make us think we can eat whatever we want, whenever we want. And the metabolism that we have then makes it go away. And I carry that habit into my 40s thinking I can eat whatever I want. My body's like, you can, but it's not going to go away as quickly. And I think that has been the pileup, if you would. So I'm just looking at myself like, that's not my back as I remember my back. And I came out of the bathroom with all this confidence, thinking like I was all elegant and this and that. And it's not that I wasn't. It just was like the picture didn't match what I thought I looked like and what I felt I thought I looked like, right? And so I just, I didn't go into a place of like, oh my God, I didn't shame myself, but I was like, Rachel, you got to do better. And it's not so much like, don't gain the weight, Rachel. Like I'm getting older. I've had a child. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's part of life. Right. And there's some aspects that I do like that I've picked up some weight in some areas that I did want 10 years ago. I got it now. Right. But it's not so much that as it is like, I know, like sometimes I'm like, I don't need to be snacking on this. Right. Sometimes I could choose to eat this over that. Right. Sometimes I could choose to do my own more strength training, exercise instead of like choosing to sit down or do something else, you know what I mean? That doesn't have me moving or doesn't have me active in my body, and in a total moment of transparency, I think I said this in an episode before. I'm just not like, I've never been gym girl. I've never been like workout girl. You know what I mean? I've always been active though, by way of like walking around and doing things like, like I'm just always doing something. So I'm active, right, in that way, but not I guess, fitness active, and so, and then so when I started teaching yoga in my 30s, and my metabolism was one way, the active yoga was keeping me, in a place that felt good for me. And I don't, I'm not teaching, I'm teaching a lot, but not as much as I was, and not as much active as I was, because I've been very focused a lot, especially lately and over this past year, on like the restorative yoga and just really, really, really being present in the body, not by just by active movement, but by stillness and things like that, right? So I'm not teaching and I'm not running all over the place. I'm not teaching at the gym, so there's just differences in how I'm teaching and how I'm using my body. So I'm not as physically fitness active, right, as I probably could be. I'll say, I won't say should be, I'll say could be. And, when I have my moments, again, when you think of like insomnia, and you're kind of thinking about your life, sometimes I unnecessarily beat up on myself, but sometimes I have those conversations where I'm like, yeah, Rachel, like, like you could be getting up a little bit earlier in the morning. You could be, making more time for this. You could be more organized with that, right? When it comes to entrepreneurship, just personal lifestyle and stuff like that. And just making more time for a more physical, my own personal exercise. Again, it's not that exercise, you know what I mean? It's not like exercise is a form of self-care, even though it can be. And even though it is, I think, depending on how you approach it. But I was going to say, it to me, it speaks to like, again, that blessing and curse of being a healer. You give, you give, you give, you give, you give, right? And then when it comes to like your turn for body work, you're too tired to do it, or you don't feel like doing it. When it comes to your turn to like work out and be the gym student, or the whatever, the physical fitness student, not the teacher, it's like, man, I'm worn out from, teaching and showing up all day. I'm going to sit down and watch this show instead, right? So it's those little choices. But that, again, instead of choosing myself in terms of, doing something that would be positive for me in the long run, that is aligned with how I want to look and feel about myself, in the long run, I choose not to do that because I'm worn out from the other work I've done as a healer, right? So it's like that's that same kind of double-edged sword bit. So I know the spaces where it's like, all right, Rachel, you can push yourself a little bit more, you can show up a little bit more, you can apply, a little more discipline here, and making that time for myself for like more of a physical active practice, outside of yoga, honestly, or maybe even combined with yoga, but you can make more time for that. You can make more room for that. And so, yeah, so I like, I know that that's a choice that I can make that I'm not making. And so, so I wasn't beating myself up. It wasn't like, oh my God, Rachel, you're awful. Like you can't eat anything. But it was like, all right, Rachel, like you've been having this conversation with yourself for a while now. It's time to try and, do something about that. And, I've had conversations with myself about my diet, just a lot of different things. I've had conversations, and now it's time to start applying some of these things. So let me say this. This is not about body shaming. This is not about saying what your diet should be. This is not about this or that. I'm not a certified nutritionist, first of all. I am a yoga teacher. I'm a spiritual guide. I encourage body positivity. I encourage honoring your body. I say that in every single yoga class I teach. I encourage happiness. I encourage whatever makes you feel good, as long as it's good for you, right? So, so everybody has their vices, you know what I mean? Like I love chocolate, you know what I mean? I love chocolate cake, and so everybody has their vices, and it's not to say like, no, you should never eat chocolate cake again, right? But maybe I don't need to eat it at 9:00 at night or something like that, right? Like whatever. And even then, if I do it every once in a while, oh well. So this is not to shame. This is absolutely not about shaming. This is absolutely the opposite of that. But this episode is called Honor Your Body. And that's what this is about. And so when it comes to honoring your body by way of getting massages, yeah, they can be a luxury depending on household budgets and things like that. But outside of that, like, it's not such a frivolous thing. And I know sometimes, even David sometimes might look at stuff like, it's not for me, it's frivolous for him. He's such a workaholic that something like that can be frivolous for him. And it's like, no, but it's necessary. And again, it's maintenance for your body. We're moving so much, we're doing so much, we're carrying so much trauma. We're, just the hustle and bustle of life. Like our body takes all of that on. And I'm always talking about how yoga is a beautiful way to heal and restore the body. But that's why we have massages. That's why we have Reiki. That's why we have acupuncture and cupping and, all these different treatments that are out there. So honor the body by way of giving it maintenance, taking care of it, having a day each month, every other month, maybe once a quarter, whatever it is that you can work out. But it's the day where it's like, no, this day is for my body, for healing my body, restoring my body, taking care of my body, honoring my body for being the vehicle that gets me through each and every day, right? And then it's also honoring your body by way of not shaming yourself, right? Like, so again, all of us in some space of our life, right, or our lives, there's always room for improvement. And whatever that improvement is, it changes from person to person. So for somebody, it's like, okay, I know I could put down the potato chips and eat an apple instead. For somebody else, it's like, I know I could, wake up an hour earlier instead of sleeping in an hour and get my time in for meditation. It changes from person to person to person. But, we don't want to shame ourselves or beat up on ourselves. You know what I mean? Like what played into, this space where you are now, where it's like, okay, I've got to make a shift. For me, like I said, it's been the quarantine, which has allowed me more opportunity to snack. I do get a little laissez-faire when it comes to snacking sometimes, because I have had like this mentality of like, oh, I can eat what I want, and now I'm like, okay, I can't. And even outside of just metabolism and stuff, it's more like just really looking at my body as the temple that it is, right? And so not eating what I want by way of like not eating things that just don't nourish me, right? Like, again, there's always room for a treat and for this and for that. Like, this is not that like you can't have anything discussion. This is not about that at all. But again, when it comes to like conscious decisions, there are things that nourish our body and there are things that are not so great. And sometimes we want to make the choice to nourish. Sometimes we make the choice of the not so great because it's just what we need in a moment. But overall, what does our body need from us? And our body needs nourishment. So when we get to a place where it's like, okay, where can I make a shift, right? It's not about beating yourself up the whole way through. It's about just taking everything one small step at a time to begin creating that shift, right? That's how the shift begins. It's one small step. It's one small energetic movement, one small intentional movement in a direction, and you keep showing up with that intention every day, and you start to see how it shapes and how it responds to you. So when I think about my body, right, and I think about the 20s and the 30s and where I am now versus where I am now at 43, right? So like I said, when I was with David in my early 30s, it was like, oh, I need to, I wish I had bigger boobs. I wish I had a bigger ass. I wish I had thicker thighs. Like, you know what I mean? Like and he never said it. It wasn't like he was telling me he wanted this. I was telling him he wanted it. He's like, dude, I'm with you. Like, so clearly, like, I like you the way you are, but I just want you to love yourself, So when I was in my teens, I wasn't so much into my body, right? I was more just struggling with like being mixed and feeling different and weird and shit all the time. So I didn't have time to think about my body. In college, which is where a lot of women especially can kind of get into the whole body conscious thing. You're dumped into this community of a bunch of different people. And it's like, oh my God, look at her body, look at her body, look at her body. Yeah. But I didn't, I noticed what I noticed. Like, one of my bestest friends, and she knows who she is, but I don't want to say her by name. She's all boobs and all ass. You know what I mean? And I'm like, damn girl. But it wasn't something that I was like conscious of. It was like, that's her and not me. It really wasn't until like it was after college, like my mid and late 20s, where what was considered like a standard body type, like shifted, you know what I mean, from one way to the other way. And the other way was a little bit more of a healthy look, and I didn't have that healthy look. And the more it started getting shoved down our throats, the more it, like, I took it in. Like, I don't have enough. I don't have enough, right? And so it's not like I went and I ate a lot and tried to make myself. I would just beat myself up internally, like just beat myself up so bad, beat my body up so bad. And then, like I said, when I was with David, I would kind of beat myself up and feel like I would literally like was not enough for him. And then I started dating David before I got into the yoga journey from a healing perspective, and then before my yoga teaching journey. And it was really on the teaching journey where I began to shift and really appreciate my body, because yoga, and that's why I'm always, always, always encouraging it. Yoga, the physical asana practice, is, when you see yourself get into these shapes that you never thought you could get in, or you try something new and you're like, holy shit, my body can do that. Like, you start to have this appreciation for your body. Like, yeah, my body's the shit, man. Like, it can do that. It can touch toes. It can, do a handstand, like whatever it does, like, or it's doing that you didn't think it could do. You start to have this appreciation for the body, right? And then the more you have the appreciation for it, it helps to build your confidence. It helps to drive your choices of like, all right, well, I really want to start taking care of this body. And that's when you start to make the changes of like, no soda to water to, just different things, right? Just, I'm going to have this kind of diet over that, or I'm going to cut this out, or, whatever, because it's like, I want to keep my body, feeling as optimal as it does. So yoga really helped me learn to just love and appreciate my body as the vehicle that it is. But now here we are, I'm in my, in my 40s, 43, officially in the 40s. And now my body looks different than it did in the 20s. And now I'm like, oh my God, I want to look like that again, and it's just this space. It's like, it's like the body's just caught in the continuum of like, I'm never enough for you. I'm either not thick enough or I'm not skinny enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not short enough. I'm not, bosomy enough. I'm not, ass enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that. My feet, it's like, what do you want from me? Right? Like, I just came here to give you what I was designed to give you. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's never enough. And interestingly enough too, what contributed to me thinking about this discussion was I started watching a really bad movie on Netflix yesterday. After I had done some things, so I did earn the quiet time, but it was, Beyond Illusion. It's something I'm like halfway through it. It was like really, really bad. But the one main character who's in it, she was talking, she's like an older woman, not older, but probably like my age or, somewhere around my age. So older in that aspect, right? Not that I consider myself an older woman, but she has like a 20-something-year-old nanny. So that kind of dynamic. And the nanny's all like, oh, I'm conscious about my body. And I think she said, because I've heard this expression before, but I didn't look it up to make sure I get it right now. So if I get it wrong, forgive me. But it's something along the lines of like, beauty is wasted on youth. And, and when she explained why she said that, she said the same thing. She was like, when I was younger, I was always so conscious of myself. And now I love myself, but I just wish that I loved myself then the way that I love myself now. And I was like, that's a word in this really bad movie. But that's kind of what I'm speaking to as far as my own personal experience, right? Like, my beauty, right, which is really inside out, the body's the vehicle, but the shape of it has nothing to really do with beauty, right? It's just what society puts out there. Certainly this Western society, gets shoved down our face, Instagram, like, and I think I have to say it's probably because social media wasn't there when I was a teenager that I didn't get caught up in shit outside of what was really happening in my world. And for me at 15, it was definitely trying to navigate the world of like black and white. Like, it was definitely that for a variety of different reasons. But I think knowing me now, had social media been there then, just like we're seeing with our kids now, and middle schoolers experiencing some of the highest levels of anxiety that has ever been experienced by that population. So you go middle, high school, like, I definitely would have been just fucking freaked out, about how I looked and all of this type of stuff if what we're dealing with now was out when I was a kid, right? So we have like all of that now, all of this stuff like being shoved in our face, look like this, look like that. And it's just like, man, it can make you disconnect from that idea that beauty really does come from the inside. And that's why I'm so grateful to have a partner who reminds me of that. Like, dude, I just want you to love yourself. Like, I think you're beautiful, but I'm with you because of your heart. I'm with you because of the person you are. Yeah, you're nice to look at for me. You know what I mean? But like, I'm with you because of the person you are. Like, that's what keeps me here. And so it's that reminder, like it's inside out work. And that's what I'm always talking about when it comes to yoga, when it comes to healing, when it comes to finding our free. It's all inside out work. Everything else is relying on external support or external gratification or external confirmation, right? Like, I'm always talking about happiness doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from like inner peace. Like, yeah, there are things externally that can make us happy. We get an influx of money, we meet somebody and we have a really great relationship, things like that can help to contribute, to our experience. But the experience is really an inside out thing, because external things can go away, right? Including the body, right? Like, we can lose a limb. We could lose use of a limb, right? And then what? Then you're going to be like, I wish I had my Bigfoot back. You know what I mean? Like, so it really is inside out work. And I'm just really, really thinking about that. And yeah, to support my inside out work, it might mean, okay, Rachel, you need to be a little bit more conscious when approaching your diet. It might mean, okay, I got to put down this snack for that. It might mean, okay, I don't feel like doing a 60-minute active, cardio, arm strengthening, whatever class, but I'm going to do it, right? Because in the long run, I'm going to feel better about myself. It's not, yeah, I may want to get my body to a certain shape. I'd be lying if I said otherwise, but it's more about just getting to that place where I feel good about myself. And for me, I always feel good when I see myself showing up to the best of my ability. And that's what it's about, So whether it's the exercise, whether it's the eating, whether it's like, well, you know what, fuck it, my body looks how it looks and I love it and I'm just riding out with it, you know what I'm saying? But I'm fully like there with it, then that's where I'm most happy with and proud of myself, when I really see myself showing up and doing my best. So again, it doesn't mean because my back has a little more weight on it, my pictures look a little different, you know what I mean? I see the weight change in myself. It doesn't mean that like, because of that, it's like, oh, it's a terrible thing. Like, no, you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I noticed, I see the shift. I have some awareness around that. And, now I'm going to do what makes me feel better, about myself, however that looks from here on out. But the goal overall is to honor the body. To honor the body. So again, this is not an episode of judgment. This is not an episode of finger pointing. This is certainly not an episode of you should, but this is an episode of you, as I always encourage, just getting in tune with yourself, right? Like, sit down, meditate, sit in silence. It's beautiful outside. The sun is out. Get out into the sun. Just take a few moments with yourself and just ask yourself, what would make you feel good from the inside out, right? Like, from the inside out. If you didn't have to worry about work, like, just what would make you feel good, right? So if it's like, all right, I need to drink a little more water. All right, I felt good when I was in my yoga practice and I've gotten away from it. I need to get back to that. I felt good when I saw myself reading one book a month. What are the things that really made you feel nourished, truly nourished, not forced, not like, oh my God, I have to do this for, you know what I mean? But just things that brought you joy, things that made you feel nourished from the inside out, things that make you feel good from the inside out. Like, tap into those things. Are they still in your life? Have you gotten disconnected or out of alignment? And then see, where can you close the gap? Where can you bring things more into alignment? And notice how that contributes to your overall sense of peace, of happiness, and just of feeling good about yourself. Honor your body. I feel like that's something I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I am looking at the timer and getting on about an hour here. And, the first episode, I was like, yeah, each episode is going to be like 30 minutes. And then the second episode was like an hour. And I always sit down with the intention of not being too long because, again, the world we live in, I get attention spans. And, an hour can be a really long space of time. So I'm mindful of that, and I try not to go too far over an hour. So I'll pause that here. But if anybody is listening to this and has thoughts they want to share or a follow-up discussion, please contact me, reach out to me. Just let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you'd like me to continue this discussion. If you know how to create a seamless podcast guest experience, please let me know that too. And if you love to join me in this discussion about honoring the body, please, the more the merrier. So so just let me know thoughts, feedback, and if this is a discussion that we like to see again in the future. But for now, and with that, let's go ahead and get ready to settle in for ending today's episode. So finding a comfortable seat wherever you are. Sitting with a tall spine, so noticing that you're not rounding or slumping your back. Might feel good to lift up through the crown of your head, the top of your head. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, full breath out through the mouth. Maybe you want to close the eyes if that feels good and is available to you. And as you settle in here, I'm going to share a passage from Melody Beattie's Journey to the Heart, Daily Meditations on the Path to Freeing Your Soul. And this passage is called Honor the Needs of Your Body. Take time to rest and regroup as often as you need. At the beginning of the journey and along the way, take time to honor your body. When you honor your body, you honor your soul. You have been working hard on yourself, on your spiritual growth. You are moving forward, evolving at a rapid pace. Give your body time to catch up. Your body isn't a bother, it's an ally. Your body knows what it needs and what your soul needs too. Tune into your body. Listen. On those days when your body is adjusting, regrouping, shifting, because you're growing and healing emotionally and spiritually, let it do that. Don't ignore it. Don't force it. Be gentle. Recognize its nuances. Ask it what it needs. Juice, vitamins, rest, exercise. Let it tell you. Then go easy. Do tasks that are easier, that seem to fit what you can handle that day. After a spiritual growth spurt, our body works diligently to flush the toxins released when emotions are cleansed and healed. After a day, week, or month of intense spiritual growth, our body is tired from flushing through so many emotions, going through so many changes. To deny the body's connection to our growth, to push it when it needs to rest, is denying the importance and impact of the spiritual work we're doing. By taking time to honor the body, to honor its shifts and needs, it will be there for you in a way that it has never been before. Rest and care will help it come back to center quickly. You will have the benefit of a healed spirit and a body that was allowed to adjust and adapt to that healing process. You will be honoring the oneness of body, mind, and soul. You will be honoring your newfound connection. Taking time to honor the needs of your body is taking time to respect the needs of your soul. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. So when I was thinking of what passage to close out this episode with, I knew that there was an honor the body passage in that book. I couldn't recall exactly because it's a book of daily passages and I couldn't recall exactly which day. But I was like, I know it's in here. I flipped through a couple of pages and there it was. And that passage pretty much sums up what I've been saying, this whole episode, what I say in every yoga class. Honor your body. Take time to listen to what it needs. Your body has all of the wisdom. So trust your body's wisdom, If your naturopath or your doctor suggests a certain diet or a certain thing, listen to the information that you have and make a decision from there. But I know that there's like, you gotta be vegan, you gotta be this, you gotta be that. And like, I get all the different reasons for all the different movements, but do what feels good to you and for you. Maybe you want to be a flexitarian. Maybe you want to be somewhat plant-based. Maybe you want to be, a meat eater. Like, what feels good to you, what nourishes you, what makes you feel good from the inside out. And you want to take the time to listen to the body, take the time to listen to the wisdom, and then move from there with honoring your body in the way that is best for you. And as the passage says, when you honor your body, you're respecting the needs of your soul. And once you start doing that, so begins the journey of finding your free. All right, lovely. So I hope, as always, this is an episode that resonates. Again, if there's anything you want to share from this episode or any other episode, please reach out. Instagram, Rachel Voss Yoga. My website's rachelvossyoga.com, and I have a contact form there, so you can drop me a message that way. But just let me know. I think I have like 30 listeners, 30 active listeners. So let me know what you would like to hear. And as always, thank you for taking the time to listen and to share this space with me. So with that, lovelies, we'll go ahead and close out this episode with what I always like to say. May you be happy. May you be free. May you be peaceful, easeful, useful, and joyful. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week.